Well, I mentioned that I'll be doing a video on Square, so that today is the day that I just did research on Square. So the number one question is it overvalued right now, but maybe cheap later? This is the topic that we'll touch on during this presentation. Well, Square is a company founded by Jack Dorsey, very famous entrepreneur who has also founded Twitter many years back, and it was founded in 2009. It's a leading financial services and digital payment company, which to me, well, I first come to know of Square for its position in Bitcoin. Well, it's very well known, and people who follow me on Tiger Brokers will realize that I've always been giving views on Bitcoin price movement and have been pretty accurate in terms of the Bitcoin view. So is Square a company that deserves a second look? Definitely. If you notice the IPO back in 2015 at the IPO price of 9 USD and has since appreciated all the way to around 269 USD, an incredible price up of 40x. The question up to us right now is whether do we think Square has further upside, since even within the last year, this year in itself, well, Square has appreciated over 90%. This is the share price chart of Square. Well, I'm hoping that it can come back down to $137, but will it? Take a second to think through. 5 years return is 20 over times. Fantastic. If you find this stock 5 years back using $50,000, funded it, it'd be worth $1 million today. Just looking back, like what I mentioned earlier, within a year it appreciated by close to 93%. The next question then is, will you buy the dip if it falls back to 250 US dollar, since it's 269? Well, I probably wouldn't. This is a point not to say that it definitely cannot appreciate further out, but I'm just not comfortable with the risk reward at this price level. Wall Street analysts definitely like Square. You look at the price range from 185 all the way to 380, with an average price of $269 being the current price, and average price analyst price of $300. That's still ahead of the current price. To me, Jack Dorsey is a very successful entrepreneur. He knows how the market and what kind of ecosystems that would be beneficial. And I believe in digital payment and financial services. So if you actually take a look in my view, that's also consistent with why I have invested in Tiger Brokers. Their model is they believe in economic empowerment, which explains why they have cash app and a seller ecosystems where they want to empower you and I on financial digital payment and giving us the go ahead to do things that we want to do without a concern about how to gain financial access and how to settle our payment. Look at 2Q financial metrics. Gross profit 1.14 billion, adjusted EBITDA 360 million. All these are good numbers. Cash app 346 million, seller gross profit 585 million, and a net income of 200 million. It's incredible given that a lot of fintech or technology companies are still making losses, and yet for Square it's already profitable for the last few quarters since Q3. A point to note is that right now for 2Q revenue, a huge bulk of the revenue comes from Bitcoin. So if we strip out the Bitcoin revenue given by the management, total net revenue is around 2 billion. still pretty decent. If you actually analyze it, it's around $8 billion per year, given current market cap of around 124 billion USD. Well, that's around 25 tons price to sales. Not cheap, but not fantastically expensive. You'll find out my view later when I was mentioned that will I want to invest in Square. You'll see that they have a seller ecosystem, and it's amazing where they try to help sellers on various e-commerce platforms to direct their business finances to one platform using Square, where critical banking tools are being merged and serve to actually provide the sellers with a one tool to actually account for their payments, to look at their account balances, etc. It's definitely showing results when you see that gross payment volume is going up for both its Cash App and sellers ecosystem. Then again, Cash App, a big part of the revenue comes from Bitcoin, like what I mentioned earlier. So people really have to be very careful on that. You have to basically take a stand on whether Bitcoin is going to be a big thing going forward for the millennials or for the new investors, including myself, who are not exactly a young, who is not exactly a young. Well, I believe in digital currency because we being looking at the financial ecosystem right now, we want the financial freedom. Definitely having a ecosystem with a digital currency may be providing us the opportunity to capitalize on moving forward with financial freedom. Well, net income wise, like what I mentioned earlier, is pretty decent. Balance sheet wise itself, they have over $6 billion in cash and cash equivalent, restricted cash and investment. That's good, isn't it? But latest news wise, is Square trying to acquire another company called Afterpay, which is the buy now pay later platform, to further accelerate its growth? Because we actually looked at 2Q 2021 revenue numbers, a big part actually comes from Bitcoin transactions. This is a BNPL, buy now pay later model done by RBA, in which they show a snapshot of the overview of buy now pay later. My concern ultimately pertains to whether is there any credit risk for Afterpay, and after Square actually acquired Afterpay, will this credit risk be brought onto the enlarged group? Of course, definitely synergy wise, the user numbers on Afterpay, which is big in Australia, may migrate and use Square tools as well. So the Cash App, the seller ecosystem, all can be leveraged on. So this is the kind of synergy that can potentially be brought on from this kind of business, resulting in revenue synergies. The only question is whether did Square overpay for Afterpay? This is a question that you have to ask yourself, and to look at the price movement of the share price chart earlier. Well, market is not over penalizing Square for that, because after the announcement being released on 1st August, Square price is doing relatively decently well. You can take a look back on the share price chart that I mentioned in the first few slides. In short, I like the business model of Square and definitely think there's potential and scale in this business model. Nevertheless, given its current pricing, I'd rather sit on the sideline. I'm happy that it continues to appreciate and I miss out the game in investing in Square. I'm just happily waiting at the sideline, expecting if in the event there's a market correction, will it bring it back down to below $200? Who knows? Nobody can have 100% certainty in terms of price movement forecast. If it go up I'm more than happy to miss out, because at this price level, at such a high P multiple and relatively high price to sales, I think it may be good to stay on the sideline for myself. Then again, this should not be construed as any investment or trading advice. It's just my take. Just to take a look at PayPal Holdings market cap, well, it's $340 billion. So for Square, it's around 124. Is there upside? If Square can go to the scale of PayPal, definitely there's further upside. That's a question you have to answer on your own, or which I may potentially touch on as I do more research on Square and PayPal going forward.